David has escaped from King Saul. When his family hears about it, they come to be with him, and also other men who are in problems. About 400 men are with David, and he becomes their commander. On a certain day, David hears that the Philistines have come to fight against the city of Israel. David asks the Lord and says, "Shall I go and attack these Philistines?" What a good thing to ask the Lord for his will. That is what we can do as well in our lives. The Lord answers David, "Go, attack the enemies." But David's men are scared. Once again, David asks the Lord, and the Lord says, "Go down, for I am giving the enemies into your hand." Then David and his men go and save the people of the city in Israel. Someone tells Saul where David is. "Ha!" says Saul, "now I can catch him, because he is imprisoned when he is in a town with gates and bars." He calls his soldiers to go and find David. When David hears about this plan, he prays again, and the Lord warns him so that David and his men can escape again. They move from place to place. Day after day, Saul searches for David, but God doesn't give David into his hands. Is he already your protector as well? Jonathan is still David's best friend. He comes to visit him. That is real friendship, right? When you don't leave your friends when they are in problems. Jonathan helps David to find his strength in the Lord. "Don't be afraid," he says. "You will be king over Israel. Even my father knows this." But there are also people not nice for David. They go to King Saul and tell him where David is, so that he can come with his soldiers. On a certain day is Saul going along one side of the mountain, and David and his men are on the other side, hurrying to get away from Saul. But again the Lord is protecting David. "Look, there is a messenger coming to Saul, saying, 'Come quickly, the Philistines have come into our country.'" Then Saul has to go back to fight against the enemies of Israel first. After the fight with the Philistines, Saul returns to catch David. He is somewhere in the desert. Saul sees a cave and wants to relieve himself. But what he doesn't know is that David and his men are far back in that cave. The men whisper, "This is the day that the Lord has given your enemy into your hands." Very quiet, step by step, David goes into the direction of King Saul. When he comes behind Saul, he cuts off a corner of his robe. Then he goes back to his men and says, "We can't kill the king. He is anointed by the Lord." And Saul leaves the cave and goes his way. Then David goes out of the cave as well and calls out to Saul, "My lord the king!" When Saul looks behind him, he sees David. David says, "Why do you think I would harm you? Look what's in my hand. I was so close by that I could have killed you, but I didn't do so." Then Saul asks, "Is that your voice, David, my son?" And he cries aloud, "You are more righteous than I," he said. "You have treated me well, but I have treated you badly." When a man finds his enemy, does he let him get away unharmed? May the Lord reward you well for the way you treated me today. David has obeyed the Lord, who tells us to love our enemies. It is very hard to love your enemies, but that is exactly what Jesus did. He gave his life for people who have sinned against him. And in his power, we can love our enemies as well. You see how David did it. King Saul says, I know the Lord will make you king in Israel, but please promise me that you will not kill my family. David does so. Then Saul returns home, leaving David behind.